Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wal ba'd. Today we're going to do two names of Allah and they both have the same meanings. Okay? One is Al-Mutakabbir and the other is Kabir, Al-Kabir. But they both have the same meanings. Okay? So, you know how we always talk about what does it mean in the dictionary? Linguistically. So linguistically it means to make something larger than it actually is. Okay? So if it's something is like this big and I say that it is larger than this big, that's what kabbara means, to make something big. Okay? To make something larger or bigger than in the actual size. Okay? So Al-Mutakabbir is mentioned once in the Quran. We've mentioned this ayah a few times, Al-Hijrah. We've talked about, do you remember which names we've done in this? We've done Al-Malik, then we've done Allah first, then we've done Al-Malik, we've done Al-Quddus, Salam, Al-Mu'min, Al-Muhaymin, Al-Aziz, Al-Jabbar, and then today we're going to do Al-Mutakabbir. Okay? So Al-Mutakabbir has been mentioned once in the Quran, but Al-Kabir has been mentioned 6 times in the Quran. Okay? So one of them is this, Alimul Ghaibi wa Shahadati Al-Kabiru Al-Muta'al. He knows what is not seen as well as what is seen. Okay? So he can see what is not there, what we can't see, he can see it. And he also sees what we can see. And he is the great, the most high. So Al-Kabir is great. Okay? Assalamu alaikum. Good. Mari, I'm just gonna, since we just started, I'll go back a few slides. So I started the class just with Maria because nobody's here today. But we had just started, so I can, I'll go back. So today we're going to do Al-Mutakabbir and Al-Kabir. Those are the next 2 names that we're doing. So in the dictionary, kabbara, yukabbiru means to make something bigger than it actually is. So if it's something is maybe this large in size, if we see it to be larger than its actual size, or we make it larger than its actual size, and that means we have that kabbarahu, like we've made it larger. Okay? Made it bigger. So Al-Mutakabbir is only mentioned once in the Quran. Wa alaikum salam. Go ahead, or here? No? That, okay. So, huh? I don't think so. No, today is nobody here.
I've never seen a couch on wheels.
So Al-Mutakabbir is just mentioned once in the Quran in Surah Al-Hijrah. This is the same ayah that we've done a few names of. Al-Kabir, however, is mentioned 6 times in the Quran. So one of them is Alim al-Ghaibi wa Shahadati Al-Kabiru Al-Muta'al. He knows what is seen and as well as what is, he knows what is not seen, the ghaib, that we can't see, the angels, different kinds of angels come daily up and down and they, follow through on Allah's commands. We can't see that, but Allah can, as well as what is, what is zahir, what is seen. And He is great, the Most High. And as you can see, Kabir, they use the translation great for it. Okay? Another verse that it's been mentioned in is ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّ اللَّهُ هُوَ الْحَقُّ وَأَنَّ مَا يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِهِ هُوَ الْبَاطِلُ وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ عَلِيُّ الْكَبِيرُ. So it will be because it is God alone who is the truth, and whatever else they invoke is sheer falsehood. It is God who is the most high, the most great. So there is, in definition, Al-Ali and Kabir are very similar, because Al-Kabir is high, and Al-Ali is high, and Al-Kabir is great. So when we come to Al-Ali, we can, talk about maybe, the differences between something that's high and something that's great, okay? But on the face value, it does seem like Ali and Kabir are very close in meaning. Another ayah where, no, we've already done 2. So out of the 6, I've shared 2 ayahs with you. So how does this pertain to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Al-Mutakabbir, Al-Kabir. So think of it this way, He is greater in the sense that He can exert Himself, exert His greatness, His power over anything. So He is greater than any evil, any transgression, any oppression. Mari, you know what transgression means? Anything that transgresses, moves away from staying on the straight path, okay? Any creation or anything that's less than Him. So He is greater than everything. What do you think is the difference between this meaning and the name we did last week? I think all 3 of you were there last week. Do you remember the name we did last week? Huh? Al-Jabbar, right? So Jabbar we said was compeller. But we also used the word power. We said He has the power to, we said He has the power to compel, He has the power to make, change things. What do you think? How is that different from Al-Mutakabbir?
Like personally, when I see that, I think about how human beings are being so arrogant.
Yes.
And no matter how arrogant they are, Allah is a mutakabbir.
Exactly.
So that's what comes in.
And what do you think about Al-Jabbar?
It doesn't matter how human beings can be like trying to be powerful.
Allah Ta'ala has the... Yeah. Yeah.
It makes me think about like, we talked about Hitler last time.
Yeah.
He did to the Jewish people.
Yeah.
So, or, other nations.
Yeah.
So Allah always is an example that no matter what you do, I'm more
He is.
Yes.
So when we talk about Al-Mutakabbir talks more about strength of compelling, of making things happen. Whereas, when we talk about Al-Jabbar, it's about compelling, it's about the strength to overpower. Whereas, Al-Mutakabbir is more about the greatness of Allah. Okay? So, Allah's greatness is something that we cannot comprehend. It's not something that we can imagine, right? And we've also been, told, by Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and through various other Sahabas, do not try and imagine what Allah is like, right? There's so many ayahs that talk about Allah's saq, His leg, Allah's yad, His hand, but we're not going to think about what the hand looks like or what the leg looks like because we don't know whether, how can we even begin to imagine, right? We don't even have the tools to imagine, and there is ikhtilaf on whether it's literal or it's not. There's a difference of opinion. But either way, it's difficult. All we know is it's not like anything that looks like our body parts, and it's not anything that we can imagine. So it's best to try to get to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through what? His names and His attributes, right? Because if you sit down and start thinking, there is no way, because your mind is too, incompetent. You don't have enough capacity to think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what He actually is. You had a question, Maria?
It isn't really a question. It's just like...
Comment?
Yeah. So, like how you were just talking about, like, you can't imagine? So...
Well, if it comes to you, you can tell me, okay? So, يَعْلَمُ مَا بَيْنَ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمَا خَلْفَهُم. This is from, it says Taha, but it's wrong. It's Baqarah. Can anybody recognize this ayah?
Yeah,
From Ayatul Kursi, right? Yeah, so this should say Baqarah. I'll change it. يَعْلَمُ مَا بَيْنَ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمَا خَلْفَهُم وَلَا يُحِيطُونَ بِهِ عِلْمًا. He knows what is before them and behind them, though they do not comprehend Him. وَلَا يُحِيطُونَ.
It doesn't sound the same, does it?
No, that's not Ayatul Kursi.
It might not be. It might be Taha.
This is Surah Taha maybe.
Yeah, maybe it's right.
This is not Ayatul Kursi.
يَعْلَمُ مَا بَيْنَ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمَا خَلْفَهُم وَلَا يُحِيطُونَ بِشَيْءٍ مِنْ عِلْمِهِ بِمَا شَاءَ. Yeah, it's different. Yeah, it's not Kursi. You're right. So I didn't make a mistake. It was Taha.
Maybe it's Taha.
I think it's Taha. Yeah, I'll check. So, like this ayah is saying, there is no way for us to comprehend or to imagine what He looks like. Um, sorry, my iPad wasn't working today, so I'm just looking at the notes in here. So, is it? No, it's not from Kursi.
Actually, yes, it's in
It's Taha, right?
Yes, one
Yeah.
of them, yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds like it, but no.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the next thing we're going to talk about is that, do you remember last time we said that Al-Jabbar, there are certain names or attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we can actually apply to, a characteristic that a person could have, like what? There were a few we discussed last time. Ar-Rahim, right? We can say, oh, somebody is Rahim, somebody is merciful. We can't say somebody is Rahman because Ar-Rahman is just for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we can say somebody is Rahim, we can say somebody is loving, somebody is Wudud, right? But Al-Jabbar, we said that we're not going to use that for a man, right? For mankind. Why? Because when you think of somebody who's compelling, what happens? We spoke about a few ayahs that talked about how when you have power, what do you become? Go ahead.
You said that when we have power, you become like power. What was it like?
Power hungry. So, and I said,
Like, oh,
yeah, go ahead.
for example, like pretend like you're a peasant and then you become a ruler, and then you just like want more. So
Yeah, so you'll become a tyrant, right? Yeah. Or parents, yeah. Well, the example I gave was parents, but maybe Maria doesn't want to remember that. So similarly, al-mutakabbir. If you translate it, and I think you mentioned that in the beginning, right, about arrogance. So al-mutakabbir is not a characteristic that you would apply to human beings, that in a good way, I mean, right? Like you would say, oh, he's so mutakabbir. Well, that's a bad connotation. You're talking about that person being arrogant. But the greatness, the characteristic of greatness of being mutakabbir, it can only be applied to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? So, this ayah talks about, on the day when those who deny the truth are brought before the fire, it will be said to them, you squandered the good things you were given in your earthly life. Squandered, yani, you did not pay its right. You were given so many blessings, but what did you do with them? Maybe you misused them, right?
Maybe your intention was not.
Maybe your intention wasn't good behind the way you used them. Maybe you used them correctly, but you didn't have the right niyyah, you didn't have the right intention. Or maybe you used them correctly, you had the right niyyah, but you became arrogant. You became arrogant while you were using them. You somehow made other people feel small and weak and less and poor maybe, right? So you squandered the good things you were given in your earthly life. You took your fill of pleasure there. So on this day, a punishment of shame is yours. You were arrogant on earth without any right and exceeded all limits. And we spoke about how when a person gets powerful, or when gets a certain status, when gets a certain symbol, it's so hard to control that, that the shaitan is always going to come to you and try to make you transgress. It's always going to try to make you exceed all limits. So for those people on the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah, there's a punishment and there's shame for them, right?
Yeah, it does even happen to Ahlul Ilm, which is very weird
Yeah,
because
yeah.
of all their efforts.
Yeah, and it's so good you pointed that out because we will be talking about that too. So it says, on the day of resurrection, you sallallahu alaihi wasallam will see those who told lies against God, right? Alladhina kadhabu ala Allah. Their faces darkened. Look, it says wujuhuhum musawaddada. They'll be black. They'll be blackened from shame, right? Now we don't know if it's an actual blackened or wallahu alam, but what we need to understand from this is that we're talking about being shamed, right? Like in villages and maybe in the olden days, maybe now too. Have you heard that ritual where they put black coal on the person's face and make them sit backward on a donkey and make them go around the village? Anybody heard that?
Which country is that?
I think it's done in a few. Like I know it's done in my country, and I think in Africa too. If I'm not in mine too, India, in Pakistan. It's too shame. India, Pakistan is the same thing. But like too, it's like, this person has brought shame upon the whole village, about the whole clan. So I don't know if they do it anymore or not.
Or if it's an expression, it's not really.
Here,
Yeah.
Wallahu alam. So is there not ample punishment for the arrogant in hell? And it's a question mark. What do you think? Alaysa fi jahannama mathwa lil mutakabbirin? Like, in a lot of places Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala leaves it like open-ended, right? He leaves like a question mark. Do you think Allah doesn't know the answer? He does, right? But this is for us to think. Like, just imagine for the mutakabbirin, for those who are arrogant about the blessings that have been given to them. Just imagine what kind of punishment awaits them. And this is really something for us to think about, because I think that unknowingly we become really arrogant about all the blessings that we have. And somehow we take it for granted. And then when we see other people, we're like, oh, why don't they just do this? Like, have you even thought that maybe they don't have the ability to do it? Or, like, just small examples, like, I remember in 2020, this is a personal example, but I know I do this too to other people, but just to help you understand what I'm trying to say. In 2020, when COVID first started, I got COVID. I remember I was the first one in my whole family. Like, I got it right. Like, as soon as it came out, I was like, I'm here to receive you. Come. Come, COVID, come to me. And then my husband had already moved here. So my kids and I were in New Jersey. And my aunts from California, they're like, oh, are you isolating? Are you upstairs in the room? And I said, I'm the only adult in the house. I have kids who are in the house. Like, where do you want me to go? And they're like, no, you need to like call someone and come and take care. This is just that, okay, you have those, you have those things at hand. You have other people looking after you. I don't have family here. Everybody's scared. Nobody wants to come and help. So sometimes, and I know I do this too.
To me all the time.
Right? Somebody will just say, oh, why don't you do this?
Yeah, because my husband has a brain injury, like long term.
Oh,
and I'm by
subhanAllah.
myself. So basically, I'm the mother, the father,
Everything. Chauffeur, cook, gardener.
Even they would just come to me and
Yeah.
why don't you do this?
Why don't you do that? Why don't you do?
You have no idea.
You have no idea what I'm dealing with. Right?
Yeah,
And I'm sure that we at some level, we do the same thing with other people and we don't realize it, that why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? It's very difficult to walk in someone else's shoes. What is that saying? I was complaining about my shoes when I saw a man with no feet.
There we go.
That's like really hits home. Yeah, Maria?
Okay, so there's like I don't know if you've heard this. It's like a story about a rich guy and who saw another guy who was rich, and then like before.
He used to be poor.
No, like what? Okay, so there's a guy who has like a really fancy car, and there's another guy that's like, oh, I wish I really had a fancy car. I have this like really bad car. And then there's another guy who has like a bike, and he's like, oh, I wish I had and it keeps on going.
And keeps wanting to get more.
Bike, car, fancy car.
Yeah.
Plane.
Yeah.
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 Private plane, and then,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, it's always, there's no stopping it, right? There's nothing to. We used to live in an apartment. I used to say, I want a house. Then I want a townhouse. Then we moved into a townhouse. I said, no, I want a house. Now we moved to a house. We're like, no, I want a bigger house. And so it's like always something you want more and more.
But I think the best answer for me to answer to this kind of situation,
Yeah.
Allah knows the best.
Yeah.
Like no comment.
Yeah, it's better to, just, we don't know what the other person is going through. And also, that's what I think we always try to tell ourselves, that no matter what situation you're in, remind yourself that there's somebody who's in a worse situation than you are. And so it could be worse, and we've talked about this in other names of Allah too, about how He's merciful while He's also punishing. And we said, remember, which name was that when we said there's might in His mercy and there's mercy in His might? Because we said that that was no Al-Aziz, right? Al-Iz, right? So we said, there's might in His mercy and there's mercy in His might, because like there's strength. Yeah, it was Al-Aziz.
Is it Laziz or Adim?
Huh?
It was Laziz with something.
Rahim. No, just with Aziz, we were talking about how, So it was Al-Aziz Al-Rahim. Yeah. You're right, it was a dual one. It was Al-Aziz and Al-Rahim. That there is, there's punishment, but then there's Raham and there is mercy in it. So another place, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا كَانَ لَنَا عَلَيْكُمْ مِنْ سُلْطَانٍ بَلْ كُنْتُمْ قَوْمًا طَاغِينَ. We had no power over you and you were already exceeding all limits. This is talking about, the previous aqwam, the previous nations who would just exceed their limits. And we hear about so many of them, Qawm Lut, Qawm Nuh, right? They were all arrogant, even Quraysh.
So the meaning of taghin is
Exceeding your limits. So another thing about arrogance, and I think this, we Surah Al-Luqman, which is such a beautiful surah about giving good advice but humility. It says, do not turn your nose up at people nor walk about the place arrogantly, right? For God does not love arrogant or boastful people. Mukhtalin fakhura.
What's in Arabic khaddak is cheeks.
The what?
Al-khad is cheeks.
The
meaning of خدك ولا تصغر خدك للناس. I thought خدك is cheeks.
So I think it's this when you do this, yeah, when you turn your cheek or your nose, when you, so that's so. And do you all remember the story behind Surah Al-Abasa, Abasa wa Tawalla, when Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam just turned slightly from the blind person who had come and spoken with him. He had asked him a question. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was talking to the Quraysh at that time, to the chief. And the blind man came and he just, turned, not in any way. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala immediately had, he was the abasa wa tawalla, like you turned away, from the abas, from the blind. So just imagine and we see this a lot. Some people, the way they walk, they might not be doing it on purpose, but there's something about that walk that makes you feel like, like I don't know what it is, or like I always tell my son, like whenever he's walking in the house, we know which one of the kids it is, because of the way he like he's just so loud and stomps his feet, and when he's going up and down the stairs, we know, oh, it's Sahel, he's the one who's come in the house because. Well, Baba is, I think, less than Sahel.
What are you talking about?
But ولا تمشي في الأرض مراحل, that's really like being very arrogant, right?
Yeah.
You can notify those people.
Yeah, that's like really like somebody who's like just on a high horse and just doesn't look at other people at all. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what is arrogance, right? Like, what is it about? So there's a hadith in Muslim, it says arrogance, and this is like the mafhum of it, the translation, the explanation. It means ridiculing and rejecting the truth and despising people. Sorry?
No, she asked me what is arrogant. I said
being proud.
People they like themselves.
Yeah.
They favor themselves.
Yeah, arrogant is being someone who's very who's proud.
Full of himself.
Okay, full of himself. But there's a difference of.
Different than the other, like different.
They feel that they're different from the people. So there's a difference between being proud. Like there's nothing wrong with feeling proud about. Like I'm proud about I'm proud of my husband, or I'm proud of my children. I'm proud of like the achievements that I have. There's a difference. But proud in the sense that you think that everybody else is like just lowly, Yeah, and you're just on your high horse. So what are some of the ways, some of the things arrogance is obviously extremely harmful, right? What are some of the ways besides in Day of Judgment, yes, we already have read those ayahs that there is a big punishment for the people who are arrogant. But in general, in this dunya, what do you think is the harm of being arrogant? What are some of the things that you think if somebody's too proud, somebody's too full of themselves?
They're not going to have anybody in their janazah.
I mean, people who are not going to want to be near them, right? Yeah. And what else? There's going to be a lot of jealousy.
What are people like? They all like to see themselves they're better than you, and you are just trash.
Yeah, yeah.
They don't respect you. They don't.
Even within family members.
That happens within family too. But what starts happening with this is that other people can get jealous, right? When you, yeah, sometimes if people start, what I'm trying to say is that sometimes when people start show, you know what show off means? Yeah. So when they start showing off their things, right? So, you have a big car, you have like nice clothes, then someone else who doesn't have all that, there is a chance that they can become jealous.
He doesn't have iman in his heart.
I mean, even with iman, sometimes, well, even with iman, sometimes people, yeah.
That's هذا أنا بالنسبة لي for me, these people the arrogant, selfish, they're only like self-favored.
Yeah.
I don't believe those people they have iman in their heart.
I mean, it's difficult for us to comment on that. That's a strong opinion. It's difficult for us to comment on that. And also, like, nobody is perfect. Even if you have iman, you can still have pangs of jealousy. Right? Yeah, may Allah guide them. But you can still have pangs of jealousy in your heart and still look at someone and say, oh, that's a nice car. And there's a difference between being, yeah, right? And there's a difference between being envious and being jealous. One is that when you say, oh, I wish it's taken away from him and I get it.
Actually, I have a brother who's very rich and Maskin, Allah guides them and du'as for him. But I never looked at him as a rich person. I have what they call
empathy?
Empathy for him because I always make du'as in my sujood.
For him.
Yeah. Allah guides him because I know he's in the wrong path.
Yeah, he has so much. So, another ayah that I wanted to bring to your attention, it says, go, and again from Luqman, go at a moderate pace and lower your voice. For the ugliest of voices is the braying of asses, right? So, like something that we can all think about doing, in our daily lives, like, pay attention to the way you walk, to the way you stand when you go somewhere, Like sometimes we're very, we'll go and we'll stand somewhere like this or we'll stand somewhere like this. Like other people start thinking that you're maybe judging them or you're, standing over them. And also take note of how you're speaking, right?
That's what I was thinking, that most of the women, they speak loud.
Yeah, we speak so loudly. It's like a fish market, everybody's just trying to like sell something, it's almost like it's like a flea market,
Auction.
Yeah, it's like an auction, and we're just trying to get, more of like what we're saying in. So, that's something that we should think about. So, you spoke about arrogance while seeking knowledge, right? And this is it's so scary to think that you spend your whole life seeking knowledge and then on Yawm al-Qiyamah, on the Day of Judgment, you have nothing in your in your mizan, in your scales. Why? Because maybe you didn't have the right intention, right? Or maybe you did have the right intention, but knowingly you became arrogant. You became proud. And you started just making other people feel like they're lowly, right? So, Surah Al-Ghafir, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and for those who with no authority to do so dispute Allah's messages, there is nothing in their hearts but a thirst for greatness they will never attain. Seek refuge in Allah, for He is the all-hearing, the all-seeing. This is like, have you seen this? It happens a lot in like people I know, back home in my family too. Like they'll just sit and they'll have a discussion on a hadith or, an ayah. And it's obvious that none of them have like really, nobody has like in-depth knowledge. Nobody has the authority. Nobody is a mufti. Nobody is a sheikh. It's just like, okay, I think that this should be like that, or I think it should be like that. Right?
I had a lot of friends that are mashayikh.
Yeah, it's like Google
I
mashayikh.
surround myself by mashayikh.
It's like Mr. Google, Sheikh Google said that kind of a thing, right? So
They never say Allah knows the best.
no, they'll never say, because they believe that their authority is the, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Innahu as-Sami'ul Basir. He is the all-seeing, He is the all-hearing. So even if, we don't realize it, other people maybe we think, oh, it's a closed circle, but who is listening? Who can see? It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also, Abu Dawud, there's a hadith, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, whoever seeks knowledge, that should be sought for the sake of Allah, but he only seeks it for the sake of some worldly gain, will not smell the fragrance of paradise. And I think there's a hadith that says that the smell, the fragrance of paradise can be smelled like, I don't exactly remember, but that's from really far away, you'll be able to smell the smell of Jannah. So just imagine how far these people are going to be. They won't even get to smell the smell of Jannah, the fragrance of Jannah. And another hadith in Tabrani, the likeness of the scholar who teaches people good and forgets himself is that of a lamp which gives light to the people but burns itself, like a candle. Right, Maria? You know how a candle, and it keeps melting? What happens in the end? The fire, the candle just finishes, right? There's nothing left in it.
This makes me think about all the mothers.
Yeah, we're like, do this, do that, and then when it comes to ourselves,
Yeah.
it's so important that we, and we've spoken about this so many times in this class too, about how, I think I gave an example of how, I bring them close to me, my daughters, when, in Sufuf, and like, it's about all the examples that we're setting for them and how we talk about other people in front of them. I think there's a short film I saw the other day where two girls, they were just saying horrible things about other students who were coming out, like it was a high school or middle school, and they were like, oh, look at his clothes, like, he looks like this, just saying to each other. And this other girl said to them, where are you learning to talk like this? And then they show that, the mom talks like this to the dad, oh, did you see Fulan? Did you see that person? Did you see that person? And that's how the kids pick up all these things, the negative back talking that we do all the time about people. So it really makes you, subhanallah. So we always do a dua in the end, okay? So I found this one, I thought it was very beautiful. It says, Allahumma inni as'aluka bi ismika al-mutakabbir. Oh Allah, I ask you by your name, al-mutakabbir. An akuna fi aynika kabira wa fi ayni saghira. To make me big in your eyes and small in mine. Ameen. And I keep forgetting, I want to put together all the du'as and I want to post them in the WhatsApp group so that you guys have all the du'as. But and I thought it's not a masnoon dua. I found it's like some sheikh had made it in his Ramadan duas, and I just thought it's so beautiful because he's tied in greatness with, how you see yourself and how you want Allah to see you. Right? So